All right. Happy Friday, everybody, and welcome to another future focused weekly update. I am your host, Christopher Lind. And if I am doing my job well, I am hopefully making you feel more comfortable with and keeping you 10 steps ahead of what's at the intersection of business technology and the human experience. Thanks always for those of you who watch, listen, consume this wherever it is. I genuinely appreciate it. I also enjoy the engagement. In the messages and the things that you send me along the way. And if you don't, be sure to check out my Substack where I write deeper reflections on this. If you haven't checked that out, I always appreciate it. And since it's a social thing, please make sure you like, subscribe, tell your friends, all this other stuff. You like my new little animations I got going there? Isn't that great? Nice. Okay, so today, quick rundown of what we've got, what we're going to be talking through. So I hinted at this in my Substack this week. It's been on my mind heavily for the last couple weeks. So this is the week I'm going to actually talk about it more. So I'm going to really first start by talking about one of the really big, very concerning trends that has now gone mainstream. And I've been involved in some of this stuff behind the scenes, but now it's mainstream, which is CEOs going public about their plans to lay off large percentages of their workforce and replace them with AI. So I'm going to break that down. What does it mean? All this other stuff, and talk about some of that. Then I want to go into a couple points. So there's three things I'm going to cover today. One is, what is the root problem I'm seeing here and what can you do about it? Because this is more than just an organizational or a CEO problem. It's an all of us problem. And we all have to be willing to see it and address it, because if we don't, well, the problem's just going to get worse. And then the last one is some of the real risks. I want to talk about some of the real risks that are already popping up to the organizations that are doing this. And I think we just need to be aware of it, because it's gonna affect people in a really negative way. So with that, there's the rundown of what we're going to cover. Let's start with number one. So if you did not see it, I think it was last week is when this really started popping off. Big CEOs everywhere started not tap dancing or tiptoeing around the whole, well, will AI lead to layoffs, all this other stuff. You weren't getting the political answers anymore. They literally were going on the record saying, yes, yeah, that's where everything's going. And it was almost strange reading some of their stuff. It was almost like, hey, we're doing you a favor, giving you a heads up. Some of it was just almost straight up bragging. Now, some of the CEOs who were doing the bragging thing, they bragged about other things, and I was like, oof, yikes. But the point still stands that it's now not even something that's taboo or hidden, or companies are going, no, we plan on being a human first or an employee first company. They're just straight up now going, yeah, no, our plans are to cut large percentages of our workforce. And we're talking big numbers. We've heard these doomsday proclamations from the CEO of Anthropic. We've heard them from, Bill Gates and some of these other futurists. But to hear it from the CEOs themselves is a little bit different, and I'll explain why. But this is now becoming a big thing, because some of these numbers, I think it was the CEO of Ford, don't quote me on it, but I'm pretty sure it was the CEO of Ford who, they didn't say specifically at Ford, but they made the projection that they think up to 50% of white-collar jobs will be eliminated as a result of AI. So this is big. This is big, and it's happening already, unless you think it's like, nah, that's a long ways away. IBM just wiped out pretty much almost all of their HR function with a chatbot. So the headlines are there. This other stuff, people have been talking about it for a while. Then on now, the CEOs are going, yep, it is. We're not even hiding it anymore. Now, here's why that's so much more concerning, and why it's kept me up at night for the past couple of weeks is I've been in these there's something that if you aren't in the C-suite, it's important for you to know. You don't talk about this kind of stuff publicly, for sure not publicly, not even internally, until it's a done deal. And you can debate things all you want. There's reasons for it. Some of it can be against the law type of a thing. But the reality is, and to be clear, I am not suggesting that I think the level of secrecy and keeping things close to the vest is where it should be. I think there are lots of ways that companies can be transparent without violating this rule. But the point still stands when a CEO starts publicly in articles, in all this other stuff, saying things about the percentages of employees that are going to be replaced by AI, it's too late. There's no going, well, can't we change course? Can't we just convince them otherwise? No. And it has to do with how the C-suite works and the way boards work and the decision-making process, in that a CEO is never going to talk publicly about their plans to lay off large percentages of their workforce unless that's already been decided. And I've got people on HR teams all over the place that I know who they reached out when they saw me talk about this and go, because I brought it up on LinkedIn a little while back. They're like, you're right. Like, the meetings have been happening. We're already doing this. And I know, because I've been in these meetings, and there are certain things that even I can't talk about on the podcast, where I've been going, this is coming. There's a reason I've been trying to say, folks, this is coming. This isn't a future prediction. This is me saying, I'm telling you, this is in the works right now. There are things happening right now that you need to be prepared for. And 2 weeks ago, it really broke loose when the CEO started just publicly talking openly about how many people they're planning to go. Now, I don't bring this up. Well, in some ways I am bringing it up to ring the alarm bell, because if you're still sitting there going, but I don't think at our company, I don't think here we're going to do that, I don't think for my role and my function we're going to do that, which I'll get to in a little bit, but it is right now happening. People are making these plans. Boards are talking about this. I was in some conversations and then stumbled across some other news articles that are talking about this. Boards of directors are putting heavy pressure on their senior leaders to hit 20% or greater targets of employee elimination. Now, does that mean freak out? Does that mean, run for the hills? I don't think that's helpful ever. But should it raise enough concern that you actually take this seriously and go, okay, so I guess I really need to actually be thinking critically about this, making sure I'm aware of how to use AI so that I can stay relevant in my job. I can be proactive in keeping my skills where they need to be. I can be quietly, keeping my eyes open for new opportunities, or preparing myself mentally and emotionally for the possibility of a real change, thinking about what I might do next if something were to happen with my job. My goal in telling you that isn't to send you into a panic and make you lose sleep, every night wondering when the other shoe's going to drop. I think you can have a peace of mind about the fact that is the world we're living in right now. Those are the waters we're swimming in. And you can go about your life and not, lose sleep every night about it. Now, personally, I'm going to advocate that my faith is what allows me to do that. So if you don't have that, I'm going to say I'd encourage you to, consider it. But even if you go, no, that's not for me, then you need to figure out what it is you need to do to be able to balance the two. Because what'll happen is, if you let this consume you, if you start living in paranoia of when are the AI layoffs coming for me, you're actually making yourself more vulnerable to it, because you now become the, conspiracy theorist of the organization, the person who's obsessed with, when are the layoffs coming? You're the company gossip that pretty soon everybody starts knowing you're stirring up, all this other stuff, and you put a target on your back. So you don't want to become that person. But you also don't want to become the person that sits there and goes, no, it's not. I just don't believe it. I think it's all just hype. And then you get a 30-minute meeting with HR on your calendar, or a unexpected one-on-one with your boss that just doesn't really give you any description, only to find yourself sitting behind their desk as they let you know that your position has been eliminated. And sometimes you might not even get that. I mean, I've seen and experienced it where you get on a town hall or a conference call and you realize, hey, this isn't everybody from the company. And it's like, oh, it's because this is the call where you're announcing to all of us, we are the impacted employees. So if you didn't think this was real before, if you just thought, yeah, job loss maybe, but it's probably not, going to be as bad, it's probably going to be a lot worse than most people are anticipating. And we're at the point now where we're going to start seeing the dominoes fall. With that, and then I'll get into the other two, a couple things that I really want to advocate to people for right now. I say it's too late. There are still a very small and diminishing number of instances where you still can change course. If you have not made this call yet and you're a senior leader, you don't have to do this. Just because it's the trend, just because it's what everybody's doing, just because your board is putting enormous pressure on you to do it, does not mean you have to. And I would very much caution you to reconsider if this is the path you're going, because, and if you want evidence to push back, just start asking for evidence that this will actually result in a benefit. Because I am telling you right now that this is based on a wish and a prayer. It's not going to deliver the promises. I mean, unless you're truly just a company that goes, we don't care, we're just trying to hit some op number so we can sell off to a PE firm and it's their problem to deal with, in which case, I don't know how I feel about that. But, if that's what you're doing, okay, then maybe there isn't a path for you. But if you're an actual company that's just wrestling through this and buying some of the lies that it's going to cut your operational costs, it's going to reduce your overhead, it's going to do all this other stuff, I'm telling you, ask for proof. You're not going to get it because it's not there. And if anything, the evidence is to the opposite. It is going to cost you more in the long run. The damage it's going to cause to your organization and your culture will be greater than whatever you think you're going to save. You might get a little short-term lift. It will cost you in the end. Now, that's not me saying don't implement AI. If you've listened to me for any length of time, it's about doing it the right way and making sure your people are prepared, which is why I built the Pathfinder Pulse Analysis. It's why I built the AI effectiveness rating. It's so that you can know where your people are and focus surgically on where to use AI well and to succeed. So it is possible. Throwing an arbitrary double-digit percentage and saying we just got to cut this many people, that's not strategy. That's gambling is what that is. I mean, you're literally gambling with your company by doing that. So don't do that. Don't feel pressure. Now, if you're in a situation where you can't make, it's already done. Maybe you're not even the CEO making the decision. Maybe you're the VP of HR. Maybe you're the HRD that now has been tasked with, here's the spreadsheet. Go work with your business leaders on picking your 20% and filing them out. This is where I think we're now at a stage where it's about figuring out how to do that well. And I hate that we're here. I don't think we need to be here. I think it's really unfortunate we are. But what I don't want people to do is throw their hands up in the air and go, well, we're screwed anyway, so might as well just go through the usual exercise. Because I'm telling you, this will cost. And I've been in meetings and on board meetings where people are like, we've done layoffs before. We just need to follow the process. And I'm like, no, you do not. First of all, one, your process before sucked. And second, the stakes are much higher. The mistakes you make this round will cost you exponentially more than they have in the past. Because this vacuum that you're creating by getting rid of these people is going to be filled by a digital entity that is going to fail catastrophically if you don't land this plane perfectly. And the people left are ill prepared to work with it and clean up the mess it's going to make. So whatever consequences you faced from layoffs in the past, you're going to turn the volume up to those significantly. So take the time to go through this. And I'm not saying I want you to go through this. I'm saying if you're there, by golly, take the time to make sure you're being surgical and careful. And I get there's all this rush to hurry up. We got to get to 20. We got to get to 50. Do whatever you can to buy the time you need to do it well and actually commit the resources to doing it well. And this is to all of you who listen to this, who are in these decisions right now that I know are out there, who are going, he's right. I'm in these meetings. I can't talk about them, but I've got the Excel sheet open right now as I'm listening to this, and I'm trying to decide which functions we don't need or which ones we're going to cut or how we're going to, based on my assumptions. Ask for help. Bring people in that you can trust. Like, do what you need to do this direct. Call me. I'll help come sit through and talk you through some of this stuff. I'll be the voice that tries to hold the waves of the chaos waters back a little bit. This is not a joke in terms of how you need to approach it. And like I said, my goal is not to freak people out, but to say, we're here now. We're here now. And we need to, one, do everything we can to execute this as best as you can, because I get it. In some situations, there's no turning back. So once you're there, it's about doing the best you can. And the last part, and then I'll transition, is we got to start preparing now for the fallout that is going to come. Not might, is going to come as a result of this, because it will. It will. You go look up the companies that have gone AI first. You're not going to find one that's like, it went great. It went great. We haven't got back down from any of our original plans. It's quiet. It's subtle. They're gently and under the radar undoing everything they did. And they're literally one of the fastest growing companies right now and fastest growing consultant services is AI cleanup. Which, hey, maybe I'll add that to my LinkedIn too. So if you've already made this mistake and it's blowing up and you're going, I don't know what to do, call me for that too. But the reality is this is now becoming a fast growing thing because of the number of companies that are making these mistakes. And now they're finally realizing, oh, it was as bad as they had said it could be. Oh, the problems are exponentially bigger than we anticipated. Oh, so if you're in a position where it's inevitable, not saying forget trying to mitigate, maybe do what you can to try and stave things back a little bit. But I honestly recognize when you get to a point where you go, there's no going back. We're here. We're here. And I think largely that's what's kept me up so much is we're here. I hate it, but it is where we are. So now it's a matter of, so what can we do to limit the damage of what's ahead in the coming months through the rest of this year, probably, and into 2026. And what can we start to do to prepare for the other side? How can we be preparing for what jobs we're going to need to hire for? Because you're going to need to replace these people because you're going to hire them back. How do we document what we lost so that we don't get amnesia when this is all over and go, I forgot about all the mistakes. Like, how do we use this as a learning opportunity? Because that takes work. That means you got to be putting thought into it now. And now's the time to do it. Now, I will be continuing to follow this. Maybe by some miracle, some big thing will change and people will start reversing this. But the tail on that is a long one because these decisions have largely already been made and the boards are pressuring the senior execs at an all-time high because it looks good. That's the thing. Voices like this, they don't trend well on social media. What trends well is you can make an extra $100 million this year if you wipe out 25% of your workforce and replace them with AI. And it's the unfortunate reality of things. So let me transition to point 2. Which was inspired. I saw an article where Bill Gates, I actually chuckled out loud when I first saw it, because Bill Gates said that even 100 years from now, coders will still need to be humans. Something along those lines. I don't remember. It'll remain a human profession for centuries, was Bill Gates' thing. Which even I read that, I went, I have heard you say we are going to replace. Oh, and literally the art. That's right. This is what was so funny about it. The article literally said AI can replace all jobs except coders. And as I read through his comments and I looked through some other things, I went, this is the problem. This is the problem. So this is your problem. This is my problem. This is everybody's problem right now, which is this. Everybody thinks everybody else's job can be automated and done by AI, but not mine. That is almost universally when I talk to anybody. That is what's said. Articles like this validate. Bill Gates is no different. We have this cognitive dissonance that we look out at the things we don't understand, and that's the problem. We don't understand how other people do their work. We don't really know, but we assume we do because we see it from the sidewalk and we go, yeah, I pretty much get what they do. And so we look at that and we go, I don't know that we really need that. I think we could probably do without that. And going back to my IBM comment, the number of people I saw commenting on IBM laying off all their HR workers for a chatbot, the number of people that were like, yeah, we're better off. We don't need HR anyway. I'm like, that's because you don't know what HR does. You think HR is a chatbot because that's the only time you interact with it. So as you stand on the sidewalk and see, somebody walking, you're like, that's all they do? We could automate that. Yeah, you just saw 3% of what they do. And you assume, yeah, that little 3%, I don't even know that 3% is all that important. I think we could automate that. And that's what everybody's doing right now. They're looking around at everybody else, thinking they know what other people do based on a teeny tiny little bit of our observations. And then we scoff and go, that's what we should automate. But the problem is when everybody does that, everybody's automated because there's nobody going, hey, y'all, we got cognitive dissonance here. We're not recognizing the fact that there is complexity to jobs we don't see. We keep going, we all see it the same way. And we all see that my job is the unautomatable one. And so we're picking these other things. And that works until it is yours, because guess who's not going to be consulted when your job's on the list? You. So the people deciding about your job are going to be the ones standing on the sidewalk going, yeah, I don't really see any value to that. I think we could do that with a chatbot. And that's the nature of this problem, is it actually fuels and accelerates what I said is happening right now, which is from the sidelines, people are making decisions about work they think they know that they don't. And nobody thinks it's going to be them because they're looking around going, everybody else's is a thing that can be automated. But I know the complexity of the work I do, and that can't. Now, here's where there's truth to it. There are aspects of all jobs. And you can say, not this part, Christopher. Actually, yes. I would say there are aspects of every job, no matter how insignificant you think it is, that actually matter to have a person doing it, overseeing it. There just is. Now, does that mean that job needs to be a full-time that when maybe large percentages of it need to be human? No. But this is where we need to start thinking bigger than just keep the job, lose the job. Because that's where we just look from the sidelines and go, nah, lose it. Instead of going, well, why don't I go talk to that person I just saw on the sidewalk? Why don't I spend an afternoon with them actually on the walk so that I start to see it and go, oh, I didn't see that part. Oh, that part? Yeah, I don't want a chatbot doing that. I mean, I can tell you right now, to all the people scoffing at IBM getting rid of HR, they're going to regret that decision. I'm telling you right now, there are things HR people, and this isn't me going, HR is so amazing you can't automate. There's lots in HR that should and could be automated. Believe me. And there's a lot of bloat that could be carved right on out of that with AI. And then there are parts that I'm telling you right now, you do not want a chatbot handling your HR. You do not. Even though you might go, but that's insignificant. That's what you think. That's what you think. But because you don't understand it, you don't realize what you were putting in the hands of a machine with an alien intelligence that can easily be exploited and has no clue what it's doing. And you think you can do this until you can't. And so this problem, first of all, starts with us accepting, first internally. One is you don't know what other people do. I think that is the first step, is acknowledging I actually don't know what other jobs do. And I'm not going to be arrogant enough to think I do and think I can decide what's someone else's job, whether it's worth us having or not. That is the first thing that you can do, is have the mutual respect for the fact, you know what, I actually don't know what they do. And I have a desire to understand from the person doing that job what it is. Now, that doesn't mean that just because because if you go ask them what part of your job is automated, they're not going to go, well, let me tell you, because we're all struggling with this right now. The part two, which is understanding your job can largely be automated. But you actually have to have conversations with these people. You have to understand them. You have to dig into it. You have to talk to people who have done it. You can't just say, well, McKinsey said we don't need customer service. We can get AI. Oh, good. Yeah, I bet they took a lot of money from you to make that decision too. And they stand to make a lot of money when you call them when it blows up in your face and you go, oh no. And they go, well, you might switch to Deloitte because you're mad at us, but we know somebody who had Deloitte tell them the same thing is going to call us and hire us. So keep in mind, there are incentives to tell you that you can do that. But just accept you don't know what other people do. And so those assumptions you have about those people and their job that isn't all that important, you need to throw it in the trash can right now. That attitude, that mindset, you need to just kill it. Put it to death. Take it like Old Yeller out behind the shed and put it down. And recognize that every single person has value, and what they're doing to some degree is adding value to your organization. If it's not, that's actually a you problem, because it means you brought it in and had no clue why or what they're doing. So take the time to actually accept that as reality, because that's going to lead you to make smarter decisions. It's going to lead you to say, let's actually think more critically about this. Let's actually understand what the job looks like. Let's actually include people from that job in our decisions and have hard conversations with them about where we're going and what we're doing so that they can actually weigh in. Let's maybe run some small scale tests to see, are we actually going to get a better result? Or is this actually just going to cost us a lot of money in transformation and lead nowhere, accomplish nothing? If you listened last week, I talked about the work trend index. This is not giving us the infinite benefits we're being promised. Like I said, that doesn't mean I'm not saying we don't need AI and that it can't help us. What I mean is the vast majority of what we're doing right now with AI is accomplishing nothing. If anything, it's saddling us with additional debt. It's making people more stressed out, and we're creating major problems that we're going to have to clean up. It doesn't have to be that way, but that's the path we're choosing to walk. And so we need to, if we believe that about other people's jobs, we're less inclined to make foolish decisions like, let's just cut 20%. Let's look at job titles and decide which ones we don't want anymore. The other part, though, is on a very personal level, because that first one you might go, well, I'm not involved in making those decisions. Well, maybe not, but even your attitude does impact things. And so you do need to decide, you know what, I don't know what other people do. And I shouldn't be just sitting here callously saying we don't need them or we do. You don't know. But second, you need to turn and look at yourself and go, I mean, there are large parts of my job that could be automated. If you don't believe that, you're part of the problem, because you're looking out, seeing other people, and then you're looking in and going, not me though. And that not only makes you vulnerable, but it also makes you a big part of the problem. And so you need to be able to recognize the fact that, yeah, large parts of your job are robotic in nature. They're repeatable. They're low risk. They aren't things that really matter. And you could probably automate large portions of it. Maybe it's not the whole thing. Maybe it's large portions of it to get it to a point where you're not spending your time, on certain things, or you're assigning risk tiers to different things and going, if it's below this risk level, it really truly doesn't matter. But that requires true objectivity. It requires you being able to actually look in the mirror and see what's in there, not cover up parts of it because I don't really like to see that, or, closing your one eye because of how it helps you be a little more comfortable with what you see in the mirror. You actually have to be able to look at it. And that's hard. That is really hard work to do. I've gone through so many personal transformations in my own career. I've had to do this so many times, and it is really, really hard. Just one example I'll share. I remember I used to be a trainer where I would go out to these medical facilities and implement these massive hospital systems. And so my whole job was to be the person on the ground, help all these people, answer their questions, show them how the stuff worked, do all this stuff. And I really, for very long, thought nobody could do this like I could. There's just something about this work and me doing this work that is magical. There wasn't. I mean, it's not that I wasn't good at what I did. It's not that it didn't add value. It's just the belief that it couldn't be done by someone else and none of it could be done differently was stupid. It was foolish. And fortunately, I woke up to the reality of that. And it actually led to me being more successful in my career because I went and started up the Center of Excellence for what part of this work could be done differently. How do we optimize the schedules of the people who are out in the field? What parts of what they're doing should they not really be doing? Should we either be doing away with or making on demand for people when they need it? And so guess what? We were able to do that. We didn't reduce our headcount at all. We just became a more effective organization with higher retention rates and happier employees and happier customers. That's the thing. When I talk about this stuff, I'm not talking about it in theory. I've been doing this my whole career, and it is possible. It is possible to dig into this, but it requires us to, one, respect and appreciate that you don't know what other people do, and you need to understand and recognize that they are adding value, and you need to see your own blind spots. And this article by Bill Gates and just so much of the work I do continues to reveal the fact that that's not the norm right now. And that may be one of our biggest problems today that's leading to CEOs and boards going, we're going to cut 30%, 25% of our workforce because we think, hey, they can be automated. And that really is the problem that we're in right now. And it's something that we need to do something about, because if we don't, it's going to come back and we're all going to get hurt in the process. And that's the really unfortunate part. It seems like it doesn't affect you until you're the one on the sidewalk people are making those decisions about. It seems harmless. It seems not that big of a deal until you're the one on the receiving end of it. So those would be the two things that I would encourage you to do. If anything, if nothing else, just believe that you don't really know what someone else does, and believe that large parts of what you do could be done differently or not at all. And getting there is the first step. All right, now the third point, and then I'll wrap up, is some of the risks. I said at the beginning of this, so let me start with this. There are two articles that I came across that are just, to me, some of the early indications of what's ahead, of what we're already starting to see as actual real problems. So to those of you who have not made decisions to carelessly move forward with AI, take these into consideration. For those of you who are at the point of no return, take these into consideration as you consider my previous points of, please, at least if you are past the point of no return, move carefully. So the first one was McDonald's had a huge vulnerability because of how they handed things over to AI. And what happened is AI is great for job candidates, isn't it? Isn't it great for screening people and analyzing? And why have a person talk to our prospective hires? Why not just have an agent do it? It'll be great. They can just go in and sort and vet and all this other good stuff, and think of the countless amounts of time we can save. And in some ways, there's some truth to that. But it also opens up real risk because, like I said, anyone who's even remotely savvy with tech can exploit the heck out of that. And essentially what happened at McDonald's was they figured out that this, I can't remember the name of it, chatbot who did all this recruiting asks you, please tell me your name, tell me where you're from, tell me about your jobs, blah, 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 all this other stuff. Somebody was able to go in and literally get and download all the information from every single person who had ever been screened, whatever, with that system. Like, you want to talk lawsuit on your hands? You want to talk organizational risk? You know how many people McDonald's interviews? You know how many people, have engaged with this thing? I'll just tell you, I looked at the number. It's a lot. And so the fact that anybody could go into their local McDonald's and pretend they're applying for a job and literally get all the personal data for every single human being that has ever gone through that system, that is catastrophic failure on McDonald's and the tech stack and the organization as a whole, and just society. I mean, good grief. That's a tough one to come back. Now, if I'm remembering correctly, this was discovered by an ethical hacker. So to my knowledge, this was not something that, was out in the wild, but who knows? I mean, that's the thing. That's the problem with a lot of this digital vulnerability is you don't know till it's already happened, or you may never know because somebody did it, downloaded it, and moved on, type of a thing. So this is a real one. And this is what can happen when you have a bunch of people who don't really understand the tech going, I have this great idea. We have recruiters that spend way too much time. And here I am looking at them standing on the sidewalk, and I go, all they do is talk to people. And to me, I feel like, do we really need them talking to people, gathering basic information? Why wouldn't we just have AI do it and, just let people talk to that? That's obviously a better solution than them filling out a form. And in some ways, I would say you're right. But you need somebody in that room who goes, yeah, but what does the interface look like? And can you just ask it questions? Because if you can ask questions, you can easily ask it to tell you who are all the people you've ever interacted with and what's their contact information. And in a push of a prompt, get all of that information in seconds. You need somebody who can think through that. And unfortunately, that kind of risk at this, and again, I don't believe this hit them, but had this hit them, whatever millions of dollars they saved, just right out the window. I mean, you're in the bread so deep, you're not coming out of it from a mistake like that. Now, does that mean, no, don't use AI at all for hiring? No, I think there's lots of ways. And I have tons of use cases I'm going to talk about in future episodes about how you can do this well. I'm thinking of starting a series of kind of micro consulting to invite people in and talk through some of these real use cases that I've done to help people use AI well, because recruiting is a great place to leverage AI, but to leverage it really wisely. So that was one. But then the other one, if you have not been following this Workday lawsuit, again, in hiring, what could possibly go wrong? Let's let AI help inform our decisions on who we're hiring and who we're picking. And let's have it help us find all the high performers. So we only hire high performers. And let's be really vague about what that is. And we'll just trust AI to identify those things and assume it's going to come to a healthy, unbiased conclusion that's not going to land us in court. And the thing with this Workday problem is that right now it's Workday who's in court, which I think is a little bit unfortunate, because there are a lot of organizations that to date, even still, think that they can commit some of these crimes. And I'm being a little hyperbolic in my language here, but they can commit some of these crimes. And then when it blows up, they just do the old corporate hot potato. Well, it wasn't us, it was Workday. Workday told us we could do that. The system told us we could do that. The vendor said that was fine. And right now, the pass the buck syndrome holds for a bit, but it's not going to hold forever. And that's a really important consideration to keep in the back of your mind, because as we continue turning more and more over to AI, the whole pass the buck thing is not going to last, and it's not going to hold up in court, and legal liability is going to start to fall on the organizations and the organizational decision makers who are actually deciding, yeah, this is actually what we decided was okay for us to do. And now they're going to have to carry the weight of that. And when it blows up in their face, it's going to be them that actually now is accountable for it. And so I think it's really important that we recognize these risks are starting to pop up left and right. Like I said, some of these companies that have jumped headfirst in and said, we're going to go AI first, we're going to let AI do this stuff. We don't need that person walking down the sidewalk, because I think so, because I can tell from here that it doesn't look that important. They're already starting to pay the consequences for this. And so if you think my warnings, my cautions, my encouragement to think carefully, to be critical in your analysis of what you're doing, are just to stir up drama, to just encourage, more noise and hype, they're not. They're because real people are getting hurt, real organizations are getting hurt, and it's all unnecessary. It doesn't need to happen. The risks are real, but they're avoidable. But they're not avoidable if you just say, I think we're good, and any damage that will come, we'll just deal with later. Well, that's like leaving your check engine light on for 4 years and going, I'm sure it's fine. At some point, your engine's going to blow. And when it does, you're going to go, you mean I could have replaced this or prevented this with an oil change? And your mechanic goes, yeah, you could have. You could have just come in and had that fuse box replaced, and your whole car wouldn't be wiped. Your whole electrical system wouldn't be shot. And that's where we're at right now. And so as we wrap up, I just want to, I want to reiterate the fact my goal is not to stir up fear, to make people worried about things. I mean, there's plenty to be worried about. Don't get me wrong. There's plenty to be worried about. But fear doesn't have to be the driving force. Fear can be what inspires us to do better, inspires us to actually do the right things, make the right decisions, do the real work, and change course, because we can. We don't have to burn the earth to the core before we rebuild. We can prevent a lot of the stuff that's ahead, that is inevitable. And I hope we do. And if you need help doing it, please call me, send me an email. I will help, whether that's formally working with you or just talking some things through, because the future we're building matters a lot, not just for us, but for our kids and our grandkids. And so with that, I do just ask that you would, have a great week. Not ask, have a great week. Don't lose the sleep that I have. It's not fun. We will get through this. We always do. But let's just try and get through it without burning things to the ground. So with that, I hope you have a great rest of your week, and we will see you on the other side.